You are the most intelligent man that's stepped foot in the Wharfie Pod studio so far.
By a long shot.
I haven't got much competition having a look around here.
Thank you for taking some time out of your Sunday to come on the Wharfie Pod.
Pleasure, Craig. We hope.
Thought we'd start with your early childhood / Aquinas days.
Yes.
What was your life back then? What did it look like? I heard you started swimming first and then you transitioned into water polo soon after.
That's true. I was born in Petra Street. My father had the news agency and he was also a publican. And I stayed there with my aunts. But I went to Aquinas at 7. I was the youngest kid in the school when I went. And I swam at Bicton Bars in the Melville Water Polo Club. And they also played water polo there. But I didn't begin. I took swimming seriously. Swum in the state championships butterfly. I was a butterfly swimmer, more than the other strokes. And then butterfly was relatively unknown. And then at 14, a guy called Morris Walsh from Walsh's men's store, his brother was Jack Walsh, who played in the state water polo team. He brought out to Aquinas some goals and we started playing there. And I then went and played at Bicton in the Melville Water Polo Club, which was then, there were about 7 clubs along the river, first division teams or A-grade teams, one at South Fremantle Bars. They were, of course, because we're playing in the river, it was only a summer comp. There were no heated swimming pools. The first heated swimming pool was in Western Australia was in 1962, built for the Commonwealth Games. And that was from then on we started. So that was really my background.
Yeah.
And
So it was just due to proximity that you got into water polo sort of thing?
well, due to swimming. I played footy at Aquinas. We were a good football side. In fact, we were never beaten from whatever age I began playing till the inter-schools. Never beaten, never lost a game, inter-school game.
And was when you started water polo at Aquinas, was there that PSA competition?
No, there wasn't. It was just mess around. So swimming was there, and we swam in the Canning River. There was a rowing shed which had the jetty, and then there was sort of a 50 metre, and we used to swim in the river. And the inter-school sports were in Crawley Bars. And there were quite a few other bars along the river where they played water polo. Claremont Bars was one, where a couple of teams were based, and Nedlands Bars, where they didn't play water polo, but it was the swimming bars.
Yeah, so Tom, you were part of the people that built Bicton Bars, is that correct?
You mean
You guys built...
the Bicton Bars were 2 jetties, and we built the club, the Melville Swimming Club, built the walk across from one jetty to the other. How I know that, I was involved. I was meant to pole out these tram lines, which formed the base, which they put on the pylons, and the one I was in charge of tipped into the river and is probably still there. I was very good at poling the barge out with the tram lines on it. So that was we built the 50 metres there, and we trained there. And my first coach was a guy called Bob Campbell, a swimming coach, and his brother was Jeff Campbell, who was an excellent water polo coach. And their father had the Plimpton Hotel, which is now one of the they run it down there overlooking East Fremantle. Trade Winds. And the Leopold Hotel, which is still, I think, called the Leopold Hotel.
Yeah, it's still the Leo.
And so after the 56 Olympic Games and the Blood in the Water game, I was 15 years of age and had just started playing in A grade. And they said, we've got to get this player over. He stayed on. He'd won Anton Bolvari, who'd won 2 gold medals in 52 and in 56, and he stayed on in Melbourne. And at one stage in Melbourne, the club competition was probably as strong as anything in the world, because all the Richmond people were expatriate Hungarians. Imre Tokic, who played in the junior team a lot, who escaped after the 56 revolution. And in the Melbourne's club side, which was based at St Kilda Bars, there were the Stackula brothers from Split. They were silver or bronze medalists, I forget which. And so the competition, the club competition, Melbourne versus Richmond, which was a traditional game, they used to get 3,000 spectators there every day.
Jeez.
And Bolvari was the best of them. And we said, if we're going to make any progress, because in the previous, when I first made the state team in 1959, we brought Bolvari over to coach our club and also to coach the state side. And we won the national title for the first time ever, because until then we'd been beaten Western Australia and we'd only started participating in about 55. Sydney and Melbourne had been playing for a long time and we were well behind the 8 ball. But what we learnt from him, he wasn't such a good coach. He just passed away only a year and a half ago, but he was a fabulous player. And there's a great story which I still got vividly sticks in my mind, that when we first brought him down to Bicton Bars, stood on the jetty, he said, we're training on August 1. We're going to do a 1,000-metre swim just 1st of August. And I don't know whether you guys probably never been in the Swan River. And 1st of August, it would have been about 12 to 14 degrees. We didn't have a thermometer to measure, but it was damn cold.
Just the big toe in the river?
Yeah. And we said, line up on the jetty, and we lined up, and he said, go. And anyone with half a brain, including me, didn't dive in. But this big guy, Mel Andrews, went and dived in, and I heard him grunt, and I knew how cold it was. And we stood there, and luckily, young Bruce Litster, who the year before had got the best junior and went interstate, came down and said, who's this bloke? And he was in his Hungarian tracksuit, red, white and green. And this young kid, who's 14 or something, come out and said, who's this bloke? And pushed him straight off the end of the jetty. And I've just still got in my mind the vision of as his dressing gown opened up in the red, white and blue, and he hit the water.
Oh, no.
And nearly froze to death, because in Budapest, the reason why Hungary became the epicentre of water polo in the world was because of their of having thermal springs all over Budapest, all over in Szolnok, Santas, Aga, all these little towns had their own thermal pool, just naturally filled up and down, and that's why they became so strong. And that they had an outdoor heated pool in 1927 in Budapest, 2 of them, one indoor in Margaret Island in the main swimming pool, which is still being used, and the Chozos bars, the Caesar bars they call it. That's what Chozos bars mean. So anyway, and Bolvari got out and chased the young player all the way up where the park is, couldn't catch him. But he did us an almighty favour, because he immediately cancelled training for another 2 months. We had to go over to Leighton Beach and do some medicine ball and mess around a bit.
Fabulous.
So he had finally realised what he was inflicting on us.
Tom, I heard that it was like around the World War II times. Apparently, you were one of the only blokes led in Hungary, in the country.
No, not World War II. I was only...
No, I'm saying it was after, like, because it was, the borders were probably a bit tensified.
was only just
I heard
born
that. I heard that Tom Hoad was the only bloke led in the country.
He's not that old, Craig.
No, that's not true. What happened was, after that, that's when Bolvari came over, that was 1959, and we won the national title in Perth. And there's a photo front page. There were 3,500 people, including people hanging off the 10-metre tower, sitting at a 15-metre, just you couldn't get a seat in it, when Western Australia won its first title in Perth. And he was the reason for that. But he couldn't earn a living from water polo. We're not professional, as you all know. And we had him painting 8 hours a day for a hotel or something. So he didn't like that because he could go back to Hungary. They forgave him because he was a good player, and he went back to Hungary. And in the beginning of 1960, and I then went to the Olympic Games in '60 in Rome, which was a fantastic experience.
Is that when you were 20 years old?
Yeah, 20.
Yep.
And it was a great experience, and I got to know all the Hungarian players through Bolvari. He wasn't there, but so then the president of FINA, or the incoming president of FINA, was an Australian lawyer by the name of Bill Burge Phillips. He was secretary. We were then under Australian Swimming. He was very influential, and he arranged for me to go to Hungary in 1962 and stay there. Through the arrangement was made with the Hungarian Swimming Federation, and because he was president of FINA, of the international body, he had a bit of clout with them. And I would then arrange to go, and officially I was going to stay with Bolvari. But when I got there, Bolvari said, "I can't take you, Tom, because I've only got a little one-bedroom flat." That was hard to get in those days in Hungary. It wasn't a lot of money. And but he said, "You're staying with Kalman Markovic." Kalman Markovic was a count, and he won he played in 3 Olympics and won a couple of gold medals. And he was the president of Spartacus and the coach of Bolvari's club. And he had a big villa. And he said, "You can come and stay at my place. I will feed you breakfast and dinner, and you will teach me English, and I'll learn a bit of Hungarian." So that was the background. And in those days, he had to take my passport every week to the police to get it stamped. I was the first foreigner allowed to live in Hungary. It wasn't on a permanent basis, but stay there. You could go in and get a visa to go in as a tourist, but only for a short time. But I was allowed to stay there and train with the Hungarians, and it was a fantastic period of my life.
I think that's what I was talking about.
I'm sure that you were. That was long after the Second World War.
Yeah, I was, get the dates confused sometimes.
I was born at the beginning of the Second World War in 1940, not at the end of it.
I've got that down. So, Tom, you speak, is it 7 languages?
No, that's an exaggeration. I can run a basic conversation in a lot of them, but I'm only fluent in about 3.
Yeah.
Which are English, German.
English, probably, like you.
I don't know, Tommy. About
English, German. I studied in German. I did a
I
postgraduate degree in Ham. I stayed in Ham in '65 after the Tokyo Olympics, and we did a tour of Europe. And I then stayed on and studied at Münster University and German literature, which I'd studied at the University of Western Australia. So I was a graduate in German from uni, from WA, and then I did that, and that was also a very nice period of my life.
Because you were language master at Hale for a while, weren't you? Yeah.
I was senior language master at Hale School for 13 years.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed Hale School too. It was a great place. I'm an old Aquinian, as you well know, but Hale School was a fabulous school in that period. Probably still is. And I was the headmaster, the new headmaster, Dr. Ken Tregonning, his first appointment with a good friend of mine, Andrus Voss. So, and I enjoyed Hale School immensely. And my role was to, apart from being in those days, they didn't have professional coaches in all the sports. A teacher had to do a certain amount of sports commitment, and I coached the water polo team and which was only they weren't. We only played a PSA competition wasn't then hadn't then commenced, but the swimming was very strong, and I had to coach the swimming. Well, we won for the whole every year I was there, 13 years.
Jeez, it seems like everything you touch just
We
turns to gold, eh, Tommy?
Except when I coach you.
He's making a comeback.
You flew too close to the sun, Tom. You're like Icarus. They all had to come crawling down eventually.
Tom, do you have any favourite countries that you've been to in Europe? You've been to a lot of places. Is there any places that stand out?
Well, from a water polo perspective, Hungary was fantastic, and I was there this year actually. Went over to speak with István Gergenyi, and I watched our girls under 16 competition with play against Hungary, and they went quite well just for 2 nights, and then I went down to Malta to watch the World Championships, where we had a few representatives from Western Australia, and John Fox, who's the incoming coach of our club, coming here in January. He was the coach of the team, and they're crazy about water polo in Malta. They swim because it's in the middle of the Mediterranean. It's the warmest place really in Europe, and the seawater is warm, so they get a lot of tourists there. And water polo is huge. And Aaron Younger, who's from our club, goes there in the summertime. There's a big competition where they're all paid fairly substantial money for 3 months.
Yeah, must be nice.
But obviously I like Germany, Italy, Spain's a fabulous place.
Yep.
I've been all over
Did
Europe.
you because I know me and Ben went to Russia with you. Had you been to Russia prior a couple of times? Because I know you had some
Excuse me.
connections.
Yeah, Ben and his mum was the manager of the team, Sharon, and
Shaz.
we had it was very interesting, and we participated in Moscow in 1980, and we'd been there before, also been to the Spartakiad, which was then the competition of all the Soviet countries, which was then Lithuania, Latvia, Kazakhstan, all those countries.
Yep.
It was like 16 states of Russia, of the Soviet Union, and there were 4 international teams, ourselves, Spain, Yugoslavia, and someone else, I've forgotten whom. And but I must say, and I'd studied Russian before. I don't speak it well, but I can read the Cyrillic alphabet. But after going there twice, I didn't want to go back, I must say. And the next time I went back was 2017. And then what year did we tour Russia?
2019.
Yeah, just before COVID in 2020.
Just before COVID, and after Putin had annexed Crimea.
Yeah.
And it was still open to tourists, and I'd been in there a few times. I've been into Russia, right into Siberia, Novosibirsk and Krasnoyarsk, which used to be a closed city. And but you know what's happened now. Once Putin done, is just criminal.
It did feel a bit sketchy at the border even back then.
Yeah.
And also the blokes that were reversing were apparently our age, but they seemed like they were grown men.
Yeah,
didn't
and
they?
we were a little bit older than the rest of our team, yet the Russians stood well on.
But they looked after us well.
They did
Yeah,
very
they were
well.
very nice. Yeah, so Tom, obviously during your playing career, you played 4 Olympics back to back, and then coached the next 4. So I know you played your first Olympics when you were 20, and then you captained the team when you were 24 and then you kept captaining for the next 3. During your playing days, did you have any like interesting jobs along the way, like when you were balancing water polo with work?
Well, I stayed in Europe, as I said, until my first job was at Hale School as senior language master, and that was in '68, and so I was an amateur coach for 2 Olympic Games. That's '68. I was coaching. I played in '64. I coached in I'd coached in 76 in Montreal
Yep.
and in 80. And then I finished at Hale School because I had to retire from being a water polo coach after 80 because my first wife died of very young of cancer, and I had 3 young kids, 3 young daughters. So I couldn't afford to take time off from Hale School and be the coach. But that was then after Moscow Olympics. The Institute of Sport Central Institute of Sport came into being, and I became the first, if you like, coaching director / national coach for men's water polo. And so I left Hale School. They gave me a little bit more. There was a little bit more money than I earned as a school teacher, but not a hell of a lot. But and I then coached up to Seoul Olympics.
So you had the last 2 Olympics. You were
I was a
professional.
professional, meaning But the boys weren't, of course, and it was always a struggle to get them overseas. But we had learnt. We had the ability in those days, and unfortunately, I think it's been lost. To get to know, we knew everybody in Europe, and we could always get accommodation and games. And when you get accommodation, you only have to get your fare over there. So that was the best part. Nowadays, it's much harder because we can't reciprocate because they don't come out here often enough. So that was the background then.
I think that was one of the best things when all our teams go to Europe with you. Like, we're always well looked after over there because of what you've done back in the day.
Connections formed and
So when we went to France, Slovakia, Russia, all looked after so well in all those places.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, really.
Yeah.
And it's
I know Benetti went to a lot of places as well.
Yeah, we didn't bill it a whole lot on on one of our trips anyway. A lot of ours was, I think the second one we stayed in a lot of like hostels and stuff like that. But even so, that was so much fun. We were 16.
Is it one of those trips? Is the one where I think Tom might have jumped off a cliff?
Oh yeah.
That's a long story.
I still have people coming up to ask me about that.
because was that related to the jacket story? Was that?
Yeah, it's the same time.
I think it's all connected.
Same trip, not connected, but
It was sort of corrected. We were in Barcelona. What?
no, we're in
Croatia?
Yeah, we're in.
No, we were in.
Oh,
I'll
for
tell
the
the story
jacket,
on it.
for the jacket.
We were in Barcelona, and I like clothes, unfortunately, and I spent too much money in my life on clothes and shoes. It's been a vice, whether it's pure vanity or not, but it was
Looks
certainly
very good, though.
stupid.
Yeah.
And Barcelona has a couple of Swiss shots, and one of them is called El Ganzo, which is a gay men's store in Barcelona, and which has got the best clothes that you can buy of the thing. And I went in there, and I looked at this jacket that had red and grey and with elbow patches on it, a couple of splits, and I thought, that's
Sports
for me.
jacket.
And a sports jacket. And I was with Kenny Allen, a good mate of mine, who was sort of the manager. And it was €200. And I had to check my credit card, and I didn't have 200 euros. I maxed out. And I walked away, and we walked 100 metres down the track, and Ken said, "You really like that jacket, didn't you, Hoadie?" And I said, "Yes, I did, Ken. I can't afford it." He said, "I'll stump up the money for you, and you can pay me back in Perth." So I promptly walked back and got it. And then we went, the next trip was but it had a nice garment cover around it, well, a hanger,
carry bag.
wasn't a carry bag and all the rest. And I palmed it off onto Benetti.
Yeah, well, that's the
That's
first
that's
mistake,
the
mate.
first mistake.
That was a mistake. But we went to
This was also after I had already left every cap and ball that we had on the train.
yes, it was first. We got off in Milan, I think,
No, it was
went-
Savannah.
Savona, and went Our next tour was Marseille, where you guys went.
Yeah.
And I've got very good contacts at Marseille.
Yeah, that pool's awesome.
Yeah. all
And
time.
they've probably got the best pool in the world. And Benetti was in charge of the balls and caps. Why we was silly enough to put you in charge of the balls and caps.
I actually
Benetti,
can't be held accountable for this.
is so the first thing, we put up the luggage, the train goes on, we get off in Marseille, it's going on to somewhere else, and low on the thing, as the train disappears into the sunset, everyone says, "Where are the balls and caps, Benetti?" In the first train trip, he's done the lot. And we chased them up to its thing, never found again the balls and caps. So it was foolish, but I think as punishment for
Good stuff,
that,
Nettie.
I said, "You're looking after my jacket,"
Yeah.
which was absolute stupidity on my part. There is no denying that.
So what happened with the jacket?
Anyway, so we are in Dubrovnik, and we were in some little place, and they have both the main pool, which is an indoor pool run by the Dubrovnik Club, which belongs to the city of Dubrovnik, and then they have a pool, an outdoor pool, which with goals floating in the sea, where the kids also shoot goals during the day, and it's on where big cliffs are.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Anyway, the boys, a couple of them were jumping off the cliff, which were about 60 foot.
And they were high.
And I've actually once jumped in from town. I'd taken a Hale School team up to Whitnum, and they have they call it town pool, and they have a 60-foot jump. How I know is because the kids were it was sort of a rite of passage. You had to jump from town pool, and I looked down, and when you get up there 60 foot and you're looking down, it's a hell of a way. But I jumped off that, so I knew I could do it. But one young kid, Tony Sandover, why he decided to dive, and he rolled over onto his back and burst both eardrums diving. So 60 foot is not to be messed with. No. But anyway, they all said, "We'll give you a euro, Hoadie."
No, 10. It was 10 euros.
No, it started off at €1. And as you've said, I said, if you think I'm going to jump off down there for €1, you're daydreaming. But make it 10 and I'll be in it. There were 14 boys, but you're not going to renege out of it. Firstly, you all pull out the 10 euros and give it to the manager, who I think
it was Ken Allen.
Ken
and
Allen
Davis.
And Davis. Davis for Boone, they were in charge.
God, how did that get okayed?
Anyway, they okayed it because everyone said you won't do it. And I knew I was, but I wasn't going to stand there and shiver and shake for a while. I just went as soon as they had because the 140 euros squared me off with Kenny Allen, who paid for the jacket, you see. So it was debt relief as far as I was concerned. And I then just walked straight off and jumped it, and some fool televised it, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll clip that.
I think I have a video of it somewhere. I thought we'd killed you when you as soon as you hit the water. I was like, he's not coming back up.
That's one way to finance a jacket.
And unfortunately, our listeners, if we've got any, won't know, but I can't point my toes. So I was never a good freestyle kick, but I had a good egg beater kick. But I couldn't kick. If I got on a kickboard at swim training, it took me 3 hours to do 200 metres. And when you hit the water, you're supposed to point your toes like that.
Yeah.
And so I hit the
didn't
water like
flat
that,
foot it.
and it stings like hell.
Oh,
I just remember sending Damien Williams in directly after you to be
Oh,
like, go make sure he's all right.
He was already down there.
he was
In
waving.
case he thought,
Oh, true.
I thought I was going to die, but I didn't, Benetti. I lived and took the money. But of course, then the second part of the story is we're then at Dubrovnik Airport, and Benetti's in charge of the nice jacket, which he can carry on board the plane, and he boards the plane, and one of the boys came, and I stayed till the end. Nick Elphick came up and said, "Benetti's left your coat under under the seat at Dubrovnik Airport in the boarding area.
I fell asleep. and
You had
forgot it
one
was
job,
there.
Benetti.
One job. He'd already lost all the balls and caps.
Yeah, again, this is just poor
Yeah, I think the
organisation
jacket's
from you
gonna come off
guys.
you at one
Let
stage.
me finish the story if you're here, Benetti. And so I said, pick it up, Nick, and don't tell him you've got it until everybody's on the plane. So we're on the plane, and then the boys went up and said, where's Hoadie's coat? And Benetti's got up, knocking on the door. They've pulled up the ramp. They've closed the door, and he's knocking on the pilot's window.
Hold on.
Netty.
This is an exaggeration.
It's not an exaggeration. It's no way. This is the absolute 100% truth.
Oh, Tommy.
And the hostess says, "Sit down. We're going to take
your
off.
seatbelt on,
Put
Benetti."
your seatbelt on." He said, "No, I've got to go back to the airport. I've left a suit coat there." And anyway, I finally
Emotional manipulation.
force him to sit down. And the pilot said, "We've radioed to the airport, and they have just checked, and there's no coat there. Someone's nicked
Someone's
it."
stolen it.
So I said to Benetti, who was not always reliable in his attendance at training, I said, "Okay, that suit coat cost me €200, Benetti. You will sign this letter here. Dear Mr. Hoad, I will attend every training session. If I miss one or come late to one, I will pay you the €200 €200 I owe you for the stolen jacket."
Yeah.
Right? So that's the background of the story.
Did he go to every training?
Yeah.
He went to every training.
Tommy picked me up.
And sort of taught him how to drive until we got stuck on a roundabout because he didn't know how to do it. His car had gears.
I've never driven a manual car before. And all I got told was put it in first gear.
Anyway, how I kept the secret very well until I turned up at the Aquinas Sports Night presentation, and I turned up in wearing the jacket, and there's Benetti, and he looked at me a bit strangely, and his mum and dad also. I mean, his mother, I think, was a little bit angry because she thought it was a bit harsh, the joke we played on Benetti, but well deserved.
Yeah, because she gave me a hiding for it.
That's elite.
Understandably, you at least deserve that.
That's gold.
And finally then I told them that actually someone else had picked up the jacket to cover his backside, but as he'd already lost all the balls and caps, which were 6 balls, I think, and a set of blue and a set of white caps, so we had to borrow caps from everybody else around the rest of the tour. Anyway, so that's the story of whatever that was. I don't know how we got onto this,
Do
but
you still have that jacket now, or?
I still got that jacket now and occasionally wear it. Still very nice and very modern.
Nice. Must be good fabric.
Yeah.
Tom, also, every time I go to the HBF Aquatic Centre, I walk in, I see a plaque there, I see the Tom Hoad Aquatic Pool at the HBF Stadium. I actually don't know, how did that come about? Where did you get the naming rights to the pool?
I haven't got the naming rights. There's no naming rights. I mean, the implication of naming rights is I'm
paid it to get up there, didn't
I'm
you, Tommy?
receiving money for it or I'm paying money for it, and neither is true.
it's
You're
the
not
latter.
getting paid a monthly check?
No, there are no checks monthly from me or to me, unfortunately. No,
Oh, you didn't pay for the name?
No, because when I retired from being the national water polo coach after the Seoul Olympics in 1988, I was chairman of the organising committee to get the World Championships to Perth, and I went to the FINA meeting in Barcelona, and we outbid Egypt for the rights for the swimming meant to be 1990, but it because we wanted it in our summer, it went into 1991, and we got them again in 1998. and Graham Edwards was initially in 1991 the Minister for Sport, and he'd managed to go over. It was the last major donation for a sporting arena in Western Australia. He went over and spoke, and I went with him to meet with the Federal Minister for Sport, Graham Richardson, who then gave us $3 million to build the 2 outside pools at Challenge Stadium at HPF or whatever it's like. What's it called now?
HBF.
No, it's now Perth.
Perth Aquatic
Oh my
Centre.
God.
Anyway, and I suppose whatever, and for the 1998 Olympics, World Championships, which we bid for again, I was in charge of that and knew how to get it, and we got it, and I suppose the government named whatever
The honour.
the indoor pool.
So do you at least get some free entry in there now, or?
I don't go there to swim, but I still yes.
Benetti was telling us a story how you were drinking your rosé on the poolside one time, and the lifeguard came up to you and said, that's against the policy, but you handed it straight back to him and said,
My name's on the wall.
I never.
That is so not true. I remember it vividly, Tom. On a Monday night, it would have been like 8:30, under 18s.
That's would
Your
I
pink
been
Gatorade.
Would I have been drinking rosé at 8:30 on the side of the pool?
Yes.
Possibly, it's possible. I would have smuggled it in, but I certainly the lifeguard didn't come up to me and snatch it off me. I think that's an exaggeration.
So when did rosé become the drink of choice?
Well, strange because my good friend Kenny Allen, who went as manager on a couple of those trips with me, on many trips actually, he's got Rosalie Wines down south, and we used to go. All you guys went to Marseille, huh?
yeah.
Or went to Marseille.
Yeah, I've had 2 of the Marseille boys stay here as well.
Yes. So Marseille have come out to play against us on a couple of occasions. And so we've got a very solid relationship with them. And everywhere you go in Marseille, at lunchtime, if you walk along the city, they're all drinking rosé. This is in France. And I said to Ken Allen, I said, "You're mad, Ken. Rosé will eventually be a big drink in Australia." But he was very traditional, white and red, and wasn't interested. So he's now, Rosalie Wines have just won the Best Margaret River Rosé this year.
Wow.
So it took me years to convince him, but after a few trips to Marseille, he saw how many people were drinking at lunchtime because it's lighter, a bit more refreshing, and the people drink rosé with their midday meal, which is the main meal in France anyway.
Yeah.
So, but I drink a sweeter version, a Moscato, which everyone thinks is no good.
Yeah,
which,
it's
but I
terrible.
drank a lot of that, and with bad consequences. But I won't go into any of those.
Oh, speaking of your influence, Tom, as well, is this a confabulated memory, or do I remember when we were in Europe one year, you trying to tell us that you invented the wetsuit?
No, I
Seems
wouldn't have
legit.
told you that, but Ken Allen would have said something along those lines. What happened was because Bicton bars, this is before 62, so in the early days when I was training, the water was too cold. You couldn't do more than about at 14 degrees, or I couldn't, and no one else did. We didn't start training really till about September, and it was still 14, and then it would rain one day, warm up a degree, and so there was some sort of a rubber thing that became a wetsuit, which I put on, and it got a photo in. So Ken Allen maintains that I invented the wetsuit.
I'm happy to.
That's
I'm
a
happy,
claim to
I'll back
fame.
I'm happy to run with that
Yeah, I'll back
story
that
from
up.
now
But
on.
anyway, there is somewhere in the archives of the West Australian newspaper. It was on the front page of the West Australian, or the back page. I can't recall which, of me in a wetsuit swimming at Bicton Bars, and but inventing it, that's not true at all. But anyway, you're involved in all the untruths.
That's the rumour mill over there.
Yeah.
The CEO of the rumour mill.
I've heard some wild claims from you over the years, Tom.
Oh, mate, I never made the claim about the wetsuit. No, I deny that absolutely.
Tom, you don't need to get into too much detail about it. Obviously, you went to 8 Olympics. Did you attend any of the Olympic parties?
Oh, well, yeah, well, the Olympic parties weren't like they are now. They were, we went out. We went out with, after Tokyo, with Dawn Fraser when she drove Dawn was the most famous swimmer in the world at the time, won 3 consecutive Olympic gold medals, and to an Italian pizzeria in Tokyo, and she nicked a bicycle and drove it into the lake or something.
It's an interesting choice of cuisine, going Italian in Japan.
Japan, yeah, we
Had enough of the sushi.
Is that is that related to the Dawn Fraser bars?
Pardon?
Dawn Fraser bars?
Would be who
Yeah,
that's
it's,
named after.
it's
Yeah,
named
rang a
after
bell.
Dawn Fraser. She was a great athlete.
And so, Tom, what year did you start coaching the Fremantle Mariners, to put it back on the Wharfie topic?
I'm not sure, but after I retired and was running the World Swimming Championships, I then started coaching the Mariners because not for money, just because I had time. I still love the sport and still do.
So did you prefer coaching or playing?
Well, I wasn't a great player. We were so far behind in those days. But look, I enjoyed coaching. I'd coached a lot of juniors, a lot of junior national team, state teams and club teams, and we were quite successful. And then took over at coaching the Mariners, but I can't recall what year.
Yeah.
And coached them for 8 or 9.
Well,
How many championships did they win when you were coaching?
3.
3.
3.
Go for mate.
And you won the first ever Fremantle Mariners national. You were the coach when they won their first ever flag. I think it was 1998. Andy Taylor was captain, and Christian Hoad was playing.
It's possible.
Yeah, I think it was like Pete Petrov, Christian Hoad. I know Andy Taylor was playing.
Timmy Neeson.
It was a young Tim.
All those guys.
Yeah.
They Harry Miller. They were all very young, and I'd coached them as juniors in the under 14s, and we won the interstate title with all those guys. We got
that's a pretty
the
stacked
preliminary. We beat New South Wales by 1 goal, 9-8, to get into the final. They then. We went straight into the final in extra time. At 9-8, we got in the preliminary final, and they then got back in by beating whoever else they had to beat to get in. And then we beat them 22-2 in the final.
Wow.
The biggest defeat New South Wales has ever suffered interstate. But they were a good team.
Yeah, that's a stacked
Good
side.
team. A very counter-attack orientated, and we played in the lane and fronting, and they had a purple.
So
day out
what would
also.
you say now is your preferred system of water polo, or preferred style, I should say, of water polo?
Well, I'm still a believer in, I think the most innovative water polo in the modern era has come from Japan. And to a certain extent, I had some involvement because with the coach, I spoke to him about my ideas, and because they are a very small team without having big centres, so I think they have played this most innovative style and achieved fantastic results against the big teams. They scored, Serbia beat them 16-15 in Paris. That means they scored 15 goals, of which 6 or 7 were counter-attack goals against Serbia. And they do that against the best teams. Now they come unstuck because when it does come back to being centre forward, they're a bit small and they get ordered out. But they've been very, very innovative, because when we first played against Japan in Los Angeles in '84, we had to beat to get into the top 6. Italy, we had drawn with Italy, who were then the current world champions, and we had to they had beaten Japan, I don't know, by 8 goals, and we had to beat them by more to get in, and we beat them 13-1 by playing M zone
Yeah, right.
in between, and that got us into the final top 6, and we got end up drawing for 4th with Spain, and we got 5th on the countback.
Yeah, that was Australia's like their best ever finish.
No, the best ever finish was also with Charlie Turner in London, where they beat Hungary.
As in
so
London 2012.
London, 2012. No, not 2012.
Was it a world champs?
No. It's
Olympic.
later on. It was after. It must have been 92 in Barcelona was when we got 5th, equal 5th too.
Yeah.
So that's been our best men's result.
Yeah.
But Erkin Shagayev got 4th in the World Championships in Perth in 1998. So that was a good result also. But they're the best result our men's team has ever had, considering that we're not professional, because all those countries are full-time professionals. And this is the drawback. And I can't ever envisage that we will become a professional sport in this country. Firstly, how can we compete with football and cricket? You see what they're earning in cricket is just amazing in India and that in the off season. And in the old days, it used to be football was winter sport and cricket was a summer sport. They're so intertwined with each other now. You know, I mean, the draft, you just saw the draft where I watched it myself, the draft, because Luke Urquhart, who played a bit of water polo with me, got drafted from Aquinas College. He's a very good footballer, and other boys got from the PSA, got drafted. It's a big sport. It's unfortunately too big, in my opinion.
Do you think
become
like
a behemoth that's subsumed all other sports.
Do you think like Luke Urquhart, obviously, and Cody Smith, both very good water polo players, and both happen to be quite good footballers? Do you reckon there is that transfer of kind of skill in the sport, or they're just
There's
good?
a similarity. I mean, our club at Bicton was founded by footballers. Jack Sheedy, Ray French, they were all these. Merv Cowan was a goalkeeper in the A-grade team when I first played. He was a wonderful man, and they were all East Fremantle footballers who in the summertime played a bit of water polo because they didn't train all the year round for football, and they played in the winter. And it was founded immediately. They had been in the Navy. Jack Sheedy had been in the Navy. Frank Woods also was a great coach at our club, and they had learnt water polo playing in the armed services in the Mediterranean somewhere or overseas.
What do you think about the? Have you seen the new rules coming out?
Yes, I've seen them.
The 25 meter.
25 seconds.
I mean, I'll back the 25-meter pool. That'd be great news.
Perfect.
Me and Benetti will love that.
Look, some of the Europeans are for it. The Hungarians are. Some of the Europeans are against it.
What's the thought process behind it?
Let me give you the logic. But people whose opinion I respect, John Whitehouse for one, and Gianni Lonzi, it was trialled in New Zealand, and they all came back to me with very positive results from the fact that it was 25 metres and the reduction of time. It made the game faster. But the Europeans not, and I am not sure it will suit Australia. But it could do. It depends how tactically astute we become in anticipating the time. What it means is the limitation is that you have 2.5 metres from the central point, less distance to swim to get to the attacking area. So there's less transition time, but when you get there, you've got 5 seconds less to shoot at goals. So it will be harder. So what I think it will do, it will orientate the game back to more pressing than it has been with zone. Now, that's just my suspicion. It remains to be seen how it develops. But the biggest side of the whole thing is that they've got separate possession times for men's rules, and also for after a corner throw. It's limited to it's gone down, reduced from 20 seconds to 15 seconds, but where the women have remained the same at 20 seconds, which is fair enough. But what it means, the timing equipment is only for one. So our club, if they bring in, as I think they suspect they will, bring in for the National League the new rules, because FINA have brought them into play immediately as of 9th of November, and we would be foolish not to play it. In Europe, because they've already begun their season, they're playing with the old rules, so we may as well at least get the jump on them and have that 6-month advantage because the World Championships are in Singapore this year in July, August. So I think they will, and we'll see how we adapt. But the biggest problem is every club, if they've only got the normal timing equipment that we've got at our club at Picton, they've got to get a new set, or at least have something done to the internal of the timing boards, and all the switches and box has to be changed. I went and had a look at it the other day, and I'm no technical person at all, but I know it won't work.
I mean, I'm sure we can send out the Wharfie Pod technician.
Yeah, we can maybe get Craig on. I reckon if you gave Lockie a quick look at it.
Oh, yeah. We'd end up going back to a bell and a stopwatch.
So, Tom, I know you did a lot of coaching at Aquinas. I know me and Lockie. And so there's that good connection between, obviously, Aquinas and Fremantle now. Who do you reckon's kind of been the best, not even at Aquinas in general, but best kind of junior that you've coached? And kind of what do you in general look for in a player that you think kind of makes them good?
One of the problems with Aquinas is that they haven't got a very good swimming tradition.
Yeah, I think me and Craig were looking at some quotes. It was the pool was a horse trough with water.
Filled with chlorine.
I got into trouble with the previous headmaster when at a public address at I told him that our pool was a horse trough with chlorine in it, which is the truth. It's not the truth, but it was antiquated and still is. And for that reason, we never can play there because the pool isn't wide enough for a start. And so all games, for example, we played against Christchurch and against Guildford on Saturday, where we had to go to Christchurch to play. Christchurch and Hale and Trinity have got the best pools, but Trinity, their pool's out of action at the moment. And Scotch College, their pool is even more antiquated than ours. And Guildford had the first pool, PSA pool, I think in Western Australia, in the 1956, because Kevin O'Halloran, who was a pupil at Guildford Grammar, won 200 metres at the interschool swimming and went on in 1956 to get a gold medal in the 4x200. So, and they've still got their pool, but they are, I was told the other day, they're getting a new indoor pool in the next year and a half. So that's a big advantage. And Christchurch's pool is, a big advantage of Christchurch pool is they've got a 50-metre pool where the swimmers swim,
and then
they've got a 40x25, and the kids are in there throwing the ball most of the day, and we can't do that at Aquinas. So you can't develop the ball skills that way that are necessary. But going back to the athletes, probably in his own right, Cody Smith was as good a player that played.
Don't give him that.
Would he have gone to the Olympics if he was dedicated?
Well, he was, one of his drawbacks, is he fell off his bike at about 15 or 14 or whatever and injured his elbow so badly he's got a metal plate in it, 8 by 3 inches. And that is a hell of a lot. And whenever he throws the ball with his throwing arm, it aches like hell.
Yeah.
So it's agony for him to do the shooting that's necessary. But he's got very good legs. He's very strong. And I hope he'll play again for Big
swimmer.
Melville this year. I hope so.
He did come down to a training the other week, and I saw him grabbing his elbow.
Yeah, but I told him he's just got to not throw the ball hard because and just practice.
Yeah,
little
we've got
taps
Lachie Benetti on the outside to be
Might have to
the
get
ball.
the heat lamp on the elbow. or
Yeah, I was
something.
going to ask you, Tom, whatever happened to that heat lamp?
What heat lamp?
Remember your magic lamp that you used to give to
Well, I've got two of them. One is down at the pool now. It was brought back by Aidan Harvey, and someone else has still got one to whom I had lent it and has never returned it. And I've forgotten whom I lent it to.
I haven't seen one of those since, I think, before our under-18s nationals, when you gave it to Cody for his shoulder and he just randomly started getting blood noses.
Is that correlation or causation?
Do we know what
No.
the heat is?
Bit of a coincidence, if you ask me.
It's total drivel. You are talking absolute drivel. That's no relation to. But I'm still missing the lamp. So if anyone,
So if anyone's
if
anyone's
there's no
listening,
one, there'll be
if
no
our
one
two
listening
listeners-
to this podcast, I assure you. And if they do, it's from our
Yeah.
club. It's someone in our club that's never returned the
bring
lamp.
back the lamp.
I
Bring
think
back the
you
lamp.
might have to get a move on now, Tommy. It's about 5 to 12,
Fair enough.
unfortunately.
I also wanted to ask about, do you remember coaching Christian Hoad because he was playing for the Mariners when you were the Mariners coach?
Yes.
Was that easy or was that difficult?
It was a total pain in the backside, and difficult.
He's good player though.
No, he was ill-disciplined.
Good
But-
genetics.
but was quite read the game very well. A good counter-attacker.
Cheeky
Didn't
as
like
well.
defence too much, and I wasn't very good at defence either. I must say, the people who played with me, Les Nunn and company, would say I was perhaps not as. But as a coach, I became far more aware of the importance of defence. And he was a counter-attacker and defence. And the best players who played in my time, Charlie Turner, also wasn't a great defender, but was a phenomenal attacker. And in one training game in Hungary, we played them when the great Deja Diamati was the coach of Hungary. Hungary beat us 8-7, and Charlie threw 7 goals, the whole 7 for Australia.
Against Hungary.
Jeez.
And Diamati came up to me afterwards and said, had he been born in Hungary, he would have been the best player that ever played in the world. That's what he said.
Jeez.
Maybe. What it indicated it. And he came out of South Australia, he and Chris Wybrow, but both of them started
skis.
shooting at 10 years of age. So that's still the missing ingredient in Australian water polo, and certainly the missing ingredient in our club. The kids wouldn't have. But I had more shots in the river than they would have had. I used to have 100 shots every night at the pylon, sometimes 150 with Charlie Moore. They wouldn't have 150 shots in a year.
I know Steph Curry, one of the best shooters in basketball, was getting up, thousands.
Who?
Steph Curry. He plays basketball in the NBA. He's like one of the best shooters in the NBA.
Yes.
He gets up like thousands and thousands of shots a day,
Yes.
which is like,
Just not
it's
mimicked,
difficult when,
Yeah, it's difficult if we can't get access to the pool.
Yeah.
I believe it's open every afternoon, and we've got to give access to our younger kids because they cannot develop the skills. Any skill acquisition, the earlier pre-puberty is when you develop skills, and after that period, it becomes the graph of skill acquisition flattens out. But it's like that pre-puberty, and that's why in football and the other sports, that's why the Tiwi Islands, these little kids that kick the Riolis and that, they're running around when they're 5 and 6 and kicking a footy day in and day out. That's why they get the magnificent skills and instincts they've got.
Yeah. We also had Yusuke was actually sleeping just below this Wharfie Pod studio a couple of
Yes.
years ago. Have you been watching him? Looks like he's been a real star talent lately. And how did you come across him when he came over to Melville for the Nationals?
Because I knew, I'd heard how good he was and watched him and thought, this kid's phenomenal. He wasn't big.
Let's get Benetti to teach him a couple more tips.
Yeah.
No,
Let's get him around Benetti. He might learn something proper.
That wasn't actually...
Coincidence that now he's one of the
didn't
best.
cross my mind. But he was a very good swimmer. He swims about 55, 56 for 100. He's got a beautiful shot. And
Built like a brick wall as well.
well, he's not that heavy.
You
The
seen
thing,
him recently?
one of the things I noticed the most was he'd get so far out the water, like his
Yeah.
bathers every single time. Would be out
Good
the water.
legs, excellent legs. But in that year that we won the national title, when he played for us,
Didn't they strip us of that?
they then disqualified us incorrectly because they said we didn't get it in one day beforehand or something, but we didn't know the rule. It was on the back of the and the club secretary put it in, and I was blissfully unaware of it, or I would have got him here earlier. But in that year that we won, Cody Smith was the best player in the team. He was second best, and he's world class.
And where would Benetti be in that team?
I don't think Benetti played. Did he?
Is that us?
Yeah.
What are you talking
Maybe
about,
just didn't
Tom?
touch the water.
Cody and I are the same age.
Yeah, I didn't realise that, Lucky.
Ali,
Oh,
Ali,
the
My memory is
disrespect,
slipped.
Tom.
Tom, Alistair Bruce, who's now applying his trade in London at the moment in the water
Yes.
polo pool, he was playing. in that
Yes,
team
I
as
know
well.
it was.
pretty-
So it was a good team we had, and
Yeah, that was a stacked team.
that was I think the last of the club championships, which I'm still advocating we should go back to, not the AYC, but the club championships between the regular clubs and make it worthwhile, because until that happens, the clubs don't do enough work to improve their skills. Training twice a week with juniors, you're wasting your time. When the Hungarians, in Hungary, they're advocating that they have the average young boy or girl between 8 and 10 has to have 150 shots a week. Our kids wouldn't have 150 shots in the season.
I think Benetti has 150, but he has a different type of shot.
He has them in the game when he shouldn't shoot.
I like to keep it interesting.
But
Keep the goalie on their toes.
so I think that's important, and you know, the clubs have to do the work, and if we don't do the work, we'll never. Our shooting skills, we had Pavlard and Miloš from Serbia were the highest scorers for our men's team, and one had 14 and the other had 18. The average other ones had about 5 or 6, whereas in Spain there were at least 5 guys who had scored over 10 goals, and the Spanish girls were the same. Elena Rus, who played in Paris, was 19. She also played in Tokyo at 16. Had Tokyo been on when it should have been and hadn't been postponed because of COVID, she would have played in the Spanish national team and won a medal as a 15-year-old. And she won. She played in a Habba Wabba tournament in a boys' team in the under-10s and was voted the fairest and best player.
Wow.
And she's fast, smart, shoots beautifully, and that's because she started when she was 7 in a little club in Barcelona. And until we do that, we are doomed.
Sounds like Shaz Collis.
Yeah, we're built, not bought.
Tom, do you have any thoughts on the current Fremantle squad? We got Harry Bruce, Peter Bruce, Benetti, Flynn Mays, Damo.
I'm
Ben,
not going to make
Elijah.
any predictions.
Gratitudes.
I'm not the coach. You've got a good coach coming over, and John Fox.
I can
So
top 4
we'll see
easy.
how you shape up then. I
think
don't
the,
expect wonders, but let's see what happens.
The Luke Pavlard, Lachlan Benetti combo on
Yeah,
the left
even
wing might
Peter
do a bit
Bruce
of damage.
Left-hand Lightning Junior.
I think Benetti and Pav might combine for 70 goals.
With
People
Jack
won't know
Marshall
what's
on the
hit
I
far
on.
rather
side.
doubt it, but anyway, let's
Pav,
see how we go.
Pav scoring
scored
68.
65.
So, Tom, just quickly, did you also coach some footy back in the day as well? Because I was talking to Peter Bruce earlier, and we were recounting the story that you were once telling us about the. It was a rainy day, and you were coaching some footy, and apparently you were reffing the game just from the seat of your car.
Well, that story is true. I was at Hale School and I did the swimming in the summer, so that was my commitment. But they said you've also got to do in second term. You don't have to do anything third. You had to do some football. So I coached the second year A's or something because I played football at Aquinas and played a little bit down at East Fremantle and in locally, and but I wouldn't say I'm a football coach of any quality. But and we had a scratch match for a Tuesday afternoon, and it started raining about 3 o'clock, poured down, and I didn't have any wet gear, wet weather gear.
No wetsuit.
No wetsuit, no wet weather gear to umpire the game, and I had to train the kids. And so I drove down to the oval at Hale School and parked my Volkswagen car, and I said, "Listen, boys, they all knew I played water polo. We referee the game from outside the pool, all right, and we indicate with our hands where the direction of the foul goes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bip my horn for a free throw, and as the little light flickers out from a Volkswagen, that means it's the team kicking in that direction that gets it and goes that." And I said also in our game, if they throw the ball outside the pool, then it's the opposition's team. So whoever kicks the ball out, this is before it became a rule in the AFL, the other team kicks it in. So whoever last touches the ball, the opposition kicks it in, so there's no need for a boundary throw in. So we played a scratch game under those circumstances, and the headmaster came down and found me sitting in the car listening to the music while refereeing the game.
Was that a clean and fairly reffed game?
Yes, I heard no complaints because I had the windows
It was in the
up.
comfort of his car.
Vibing in the car.
Strict no bad review policy.
I remember leaving Aquinas pool back in the day after a training, and then Benetti would be wandering down to your car, and he said it was just language
Language tapes only.
Language tapes only.
Do you feel like that's the best way to learn a language? Was that the best method you found? What was the easiest way?
No, you have to listen to a language. A language is a spoken thing. And whilst you have to know the grammar and read and study, listening to it is the first criteria. And that's why the great benefits of people who speak foreign languages here are those from migrant families where they speak Italian or whatever language, Chinese or Japanese at home, and then it's easy.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that opportunity as young kids. I started with languages. My aunt, with whom I lived in East Fremantle when my father, we had the Northern pub and another pub somewhere else. She was the first woman graduate from Western Australia in Latin and French, and I did Latin and French at Aquinas College. I was the last kid to do 2 languages at Aquinas College, and they haven't improved since. They don't teach languages.
I remember you telling me on one of our many car rides together that learning a language is meant to be one of the best ways to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those people who are still learning languages or keeping their mind active don't, apparently, it's the best antidote against premature Alzheimer's disease.
So it's the opposite of scrolling Instagram reels.
Yeah.
TikTok.
Basically. It's good for your
It's
brain.
unfortunately in Australia we're perhaps the worst linguists in the world because of the fact that we speak English, which is the lingua franca of the world. All the Europeans are now speaking English. The French, who when I first went there, never spoke English. They all speak English. Same the Germans. When I lived and studied in Germany, all my friends in Ham, hardly any of them spoke any English. They now all do.
Yeah, everyone over there speaks English.
Yeah, so things have changed, but we haven't kept up with them.
What would you think's if Craig was to learn a language, what would you think's
I speak a bit of French.
the best one to learn for him?
look, the important languages for us would be Japanese and Chinese, but they are so difficult that no one can possibly learn them from Australia. The interpreters in business who are Chinese speaking are all Chinese who've learnt English, not English who've learnt Australians who've learnt Chinese. Unless you're prepared to go and live in China for 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 years, the young Chinese boy reaches our 6-year-old's ability to write the language at about 10 because it's so difficult with all the scripts and the characters. And so, I don't know how you solve that. You don't. And so Spanish or Italian is a far easier language for an Australian to master.
Craig? You gonna?
I'll try a bit of Japanese at some point. I might go chill with Yusuke and learn a bit. He was always listening to some Japanese videos whenever I woke up.
He was always watching. He didn't learn English too quickly. I think I haven't spoken to him for a while, but they say he's now speaking good English.
Yeah, I spoke to him over in Paris. He speaks real good English now.
Yeah. He didn't
when he was here playing for us. I don't think he spoke a lick of it.
I don't think he knew. He was watching water polo videos all the time.
Yeah, he was.
I remember when he first came to, where'd we go? Singapore to train when he first turned up and didn't speak a word of English. He would just stand there and follow us around, happy as can be the whole time though.
Yeah, Japanese people are so polite.
He didn't realise that you were talking dribble all the time.
It's pretty hard to learn English when you're learning off Australians because we just speak in rhymes.
Tom, do you have any other than obviously Benetti's jacket story? Any other highlights of any trips you've taken away?
Look, I haven't prepared, but there's a lot of stories, but I think we're running out of time, or I am anyway.
Is there any specific memories from either your coaching career or playing career that you still think about or look back on as like kind of the highlights?
I think
2015-16 Dickinson.
No.
Yeah. What about that cannonball? Can you just talk us through that before we leave today?
The most outrageous play I've ever seen
I think
called
it
in
was
a game.
2016 Aquinas versus Christchurch tie ball game with about
30 seconds to go. You called a timeout and you put Cody in centre forward, Elphick on one post and me on the other, and just said, just sit behind your defenders. And when Flynn got the ball, just restarted, you just told him to shoot it. And Johnny saved it, and it just plopped down straight in front of Cody, and he picked it up and put it in.
Oh, no.
One of the most outrageous calls I've ever seen, and it worked.
That's fair enough.
As long as you win the game.
A tactical masterclass from Tommy Hoad.
And is there, would you say there's 3 attributes? Obviously, you're a captain and you've also coached the Olympics. Do you feel like there's certain characteristics that make a leader, either a leader of a team in any sport or in water polo in general?
No, difficult to say. I think you have to be acutely aware of that water polo is a team game and you play for the team, not for yourself. I think that's the first thing, and not every good player does that, but that seems to be, if you can get enough of them, and if you can do enough training and systematic to work together, you can improve things. Whether you can win a gold medal, that's another issue. That's too hard because the skills that we have got, we're good athletes in Australia, there's no question about that. We can be better water polo players if we can improve our ball handling and our skills, and the only way we can do that is to start younger. There's no guarantee that everyone who starts young is going to be a champion, but if you don't, you can't be a great player.
Is Luke Pavlar just a genetic freak?
No, he started young too, and we had a good team. And in his era, we won the under-12s, the under-14s, the under-16 national titles here, and
Do you remember him when he was that age?
Oh yeah, sure. Because
Did you know straight away?
Well, he improved, and he's kept on improving, and he's improved since he's gone to Europe and matured a bit. But he always had ability, physical ability, and understands the game excellently now. So that's good.
Yeah, he's been coaching us as well, obviously,
yeah,
and
yeah.
seems to understand the game really well. Got
Yeah,
a
no,
very
he
high
does.
water polo IQ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice. I've been yelled at significantly less times than I had during my juniors career with you, Tommy.
I'd walk down to any pool and I'd just hear Benetti, and I'm like, yeah, just another day.
The one thing that I think all three of us know how to do is be in the lane.
Yeah. Oh, I don't even know if I can do that these days.
Because if you play the system will work.
That's
It
right.
does work. I believe absolutely it can work, and I believe Australia should play it.
I agree.
Because- But
My favourite water polo was on that 2019 Europe trip when we had no centre forward or anything, and we just driving system in the lane, consequent,
In the lane defense.
and everyone's just moving. And it's team water polo, and it was great. It's great fun.
And that we ended
Got the
up
Bountier
winning,
Cup.
Ended up winning the Bountier Cup when we had a dinner
what's
the
the
other.
Bandy Cup?
The Bountier that we won in
Slovakia.
You
In the
know,
green-
we had dinner at
the
my
green
house the other
pool.
night in the 5-year celebration.
I see. Oh, yeah, I was there.
Is that the same tournament you took us to, Tommy, in Slovakia?
Yeah. So
Did you boys win it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think we beat
We had
Ukraine.
we
in the
almost had
final.
like a full team brawl in one of those games.
yeah,
I
that's
remember
possible.
that. Yeah.
With I think it was a team from Ukraine, from Lviv,
Yeah.
came over. They had a referee who wanted to give them. The coach wanted to
And-
give them a few advantages anyway.
Was that pool green for you back then
Yeah,
as
it
well?
smelled
So
like eggs.
you can't
Pool,
see
yeah.
under the water.
That was on thermal water, you see.
Yeah.
They brought it up.
It was
Heated
warm.
pool. It's warm
Yeah.
all the year round.
Yeah, it
And
just
so
smelled
the-
like boiled
It's a spa
eggs.
town in
Tom,
Cosset.
do you know how the Bigton pool heating works? So I've heard there's like a pipe that's under the Swan River.
Yeah,
How's that all?
that's where we used to get it from a sugar refinery, the heater, and we had the heating is in the overflow. There, if you lift up one of those things, you'll see a copper heat exchangers, and we pump the hot water from the sugar refinery, which they use it to cool the sugar vapours, across the river, and we had to put a pipe in. But then they sold all the land and the sugar refinery disappeared, so we had to dig 2 bores. If you see as the entrance to the club, you'll see 2 round circles, where that's where 2 bores were dug. One went down to 35 metres, and the other went down to 700 metres.
Oh,
And one's got water coming out of it at 34, and the driller got the drill stuck and had to come back and drill another one. And we still get warm water from it. And that pipe that we used to bring the water over from the sugar refinery now sends the excess water after it's heated the pool back to Mosman Shire.
Oh, no wonder it breaks all the
I
time.
think they got to start, maybe using that heating a little bit more because
nah,
it's
it's
pretty
good.
chilly down at the old.
That's been good actually recently. The last few
That heat
weeks.
is your best friend, Ben.
Me and Lockie always talk about the Aquinas College heating back in the day when I was in like year 4. What would have you been? Just year 7 odd?
Yeah, yes.
And we used to just lay on the red brick pavements to stay warm because it was so cold.
Yeah, freezing. I don't think
Now-
they ever heated
it's now
that place.
very hot.
Yeah, now it's lovely.
Yeah.
That can't run in this day and age, having a cold pool.
Boys, I've got to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Tom. That was great. Great having an
for the
8-time
listeners.
Olympian walk into this building.
The GOAT.
We've never seen anything like it, so thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I'm sure you're all of our favourite coach for any sport we've played, and we've learned a lot from
Favourite
you.
might be pushing it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Tom.
much, Tommy.
Thank you.